The text from my mother arrived 3 days before Thanksgiving. It called me an idiot and banned me from dinner. But she seemed to forget I paid the bill for the very phone she used to send it. For a decade, I had purchased their affection with rent checks and car payments. Staring at the screen, I finally realized that if I was not welcome at the table, then neither was my money. The rain in Morro Bay always felt colder than rain anywhere else in Connecticut. It was a freezing, salt-heavy mist that rolled off the Long Island Sound and clung to the glass walls of my office at Narrowgate Marine Holdings. From my desk on the 4th floor, I could see the gray chop of the water and the idle cranes at the dock. Most people found the view depressing, especially in late November when the daylight died by 4 in the afternoon. But I liked it. It was orderly. The tides came in and went out on a schedule that no human error could disrupt. I looked down at the spreadsheet on my dual monitors. I was 33 years old, the operations manager for a company that moved millions of dollars in marine logistics equipment every quarter, and I was good at it. I was respected here. When a shipment of hydraulic winches got held up in customs in Newark, people did not panic. They came to Zoe Clark. They came to me because I was calm. I was the person who could look at a tangled knot of regulations, fees, and angry vendors, and find the single thread that would unravel the mess. My boss, Mr. Henderson, had stopped by my office earlier that afternoon. He had leaned against the doorframe, holding a mug of coffee that smelled like burnt hazelnuts. "You are staying late again." "Zoe," he had said. It was not a question. "I am just finishing the reconciliations for the Q3 audit." I had replied, keeping my voice even. "I want the auditors to have a boring week." He had laughed. "You make boring look like an art form. Go home." It is almost Thanksgiving. Go be with your family, my family. The words sat in my chest like a stone swallowed whole. I saved my work. The satisfying click of the mouse the only sound in the empty office. I powered down the terminal, put on my coat, and walked out into the damp hallway. I was going home, but not to a house filled with warmth or the smell of roasting turkey. I was going home to a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, where the only thing waiting for me was my personal laptop and another set of spreadsheets, ones that made a lot less sense than the company ledgers. The drive home was short. Morro Bay was not a large city, but it had pretenses of being one. It was a place where old money summered and new money tried desperately to look like old money. My apartment complex was nice enough. A brick building called the Watchtower, mostly inhabited by young professionals and divorced dads. It was clean. It was quiet. It was mine. I kicked off my heels at the door and did not bother turning on the main lights. The glow from the street lamps outside filtered through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the beige carpet. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at my kitchen island. This was my ritual. Every Tuesday night, I reconciled my personal budget. It was a habit I had developed in college, a way to feel control when the rest of my life felt like it was sliding off a cliff. I opened my banking app and my Excel tracker. The numbers were stark black against the white cells. My salary was healthy. By all metrics, I should have been building a substantial savings account. I should have been looking at down payments for a house or planning a trip to Europe. Instead, I watched the money drain out as fast as it came in. I scrolled down to the recurring transfers. First, there was the phone plan. It was a family plan I had started 5 years ago when my dad lost his job at the hardware store. It was supposed to be for 3 months, just until he got back on his feet. Now, the bill was $240 a month because my mother insisted on having the latest data package for her social media uploads, and my brother, Ethan, constantly went over his limit streaming movies. Next was the car insurance. Ethan's car insurance. He was 29 years old. He had a degree in communications that he had never used, and a series of side hustles that never seemed to turn a profit. 3 years ago, he had gotten into a fender bender and his rates had spiked. I had put him on my policy to help him out, just for 6 months. He had said, "Just until the points drop off my license. Zoe, you are a lifesaver." Then there was the loan. I highlighted the row in yellow. It was a transfer of $500 a month to an account simply labeled Mom and Dad. 4 years ago, the roof on their house in Briar Glen had started to leak. My mother had called me in tears. saying water was dripping onto the good dining table, the one her grandmother had left her. They did not have the cash for the repair. I had taken out a personal loan in my name to cover it, giving them the lump sum of $12,000. They had promised to pay the monthly installments. They had paid exactly 2. After the second missed payment, when the bank had called me, I had quietly taken over the debt. I transferred the money to them, and they transferred it to the bank. Or at least, that was how it was supposed to work. Lately, I just paid the bank directly and sent them $500 for groceries or utilities or whatever crisis was current. I did the math in my head. Between the phone, the insurance, the loan, and the random Venmo requests that popped up weekly, I was spending nearly $2,000 a month on 3 adults who were fully capable of working. I stared at the total, $2,000. That was rent. That was a mortgage payment. That was freedom. My phone buzzed on the counter, vibrating against the quartz surface. The screen lit up with a notification from the family group chat. My mother had named it the Clark Clan and used a series of heart emojis as the title. I opened it. Denise Clark. Look at this turkey. 22 pounds. I had to fight a woman at the butcher shop for it. She actually tried to grab it out of my cart. Can you believe the nerve? Attached was a photo of a massive, raw turkey sitting on my parents' kitchen counter. Ethan Clark. You should have tackled her. Mom, do not mess with the bird. Graham Clark. It looks great. D. Going to be a feast. Denise Clark. Zoe, are you seeing this? I need to know what time you are arriving on Thursday so I can time the oven. I typed a reply, my thumbs hovering over the glass. Me. It looks big. I am planning to leave Marrow Bay around 10 in the morning. Should be there by noon. It was a 2-hour drive to Briar Glen. I usually left earlier, but the thought of sitting in their living room for hours before dinner, making forced conversation while my mother critiqued my outfit or my hair, made my stomach turn. A moment later, a separate notification popped up. It was a private message from my mother. Denise Clark. Honey, quick favor. The caterer for the sides. I decided to outsource the mashed potatoes and the stuffing because my arthritis is acting up. Needs the deposit tonight, or they will cancel. Can you just cover it? It is $300. I will pay you back when Dad gets his pension check on the 1st. We cannot look cheap in front of the Aunt Marla and the cousins. I closed my eyes and exhaled a long breath through my nose. We cannot look cheap. That was the family motto. It did not matter that we were drowning. It only mattered that we looked like we were swimming. I typed back. Me. Mom, I just paid the car insurance yesterday. I am a little tight until payday. The response was instantaneous. The typing bubbles appeared and disappeared 3 times, indicating she was writing and deleting, recalibrating her guilt trip. Denise Clark. Tight, Zoe. You make more money than anyone in this family. God forbid you help your mother so she does not have to be in pain peeling 5 pounds of potatoes. Fine, I will just cancel it. We will eat boxed stuffing. I am sure everyone will understand that my daughter, the big city manager, could not spare a few $100s. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She hit every button. My success, her physical pain, the public shame, the comparison. I hated myself for what I did next. I hated the reflex that had been trained into me since I was a child. Peace. I just wanted peace. I did not want to argue. I did not want to show up on Thursday and have her sigh loudly every time someone scooped the stuffing, making passive-aggressive comments about how dry it was. Me. Fine. Send me the invoice. I will pay it directly to the caterer. I waited. I wanted the paper trail. If I was going to pay, I wanted to know it was going to a business, not just into the black hole of her checking account. A minute later, an image loaded. It was a screenshot, a blurry, low-resolution screenshot of a handwritten invoice on a generic receipt pad. It just said, catering deposit and the amount. $300. There was no business name, no tax ID, no phone number, just a Venmo handle scrawled at the bottom. Gourmet Sides by Jen. Me. Mom, this does not look like a real invoice. Who is Jen? Denise Clark. Don't start. Zoe. She is a local lady. Ronan knows. She does excellent work. Why do you always have to interrogate me? Do you want to ruin Thanksgiving? Just send it to me if you do not trust her, and I will hand her cash. Ronan. The name prickled the back of my neck. Ronan Pike was the family friend who had appeared about 6 months ago. My mother described him as a consultant, though she could never quite explain what he consulted on. He was charming. I would give him that. He had slicked back gray hair and a smile that showed too many teeth. He had helped my mother set up her charity, Second Table Outreach, a non-profit that supposedly collected food for the homeless. I had never seen them do a food drive, but my mother loved the title of director. I hesitated. Every instinct I had as an operations manager was screaming that this was sloppy, suspicious, and wrong, but every instinct I had as a daughter whispered that it was easier to pay $300 than to deal with the explosion that would follow a refusal. I opened my banking app again and transferred $300 to my mother. Me. Sent. Please make sure it goes to the food. She did not say thank you. She just sent a thumbs up emoji. I put the phone down and rubbed my temples. The silence in the apartment felt heavier now. It was not the peaceful silence of order. It was the suffocating silence of submission. I had paid the toll again. The next morning, Wednesday, began with a jolt. I was standing in the break room at Narrowgate, watching the coffee machine drip, when my phone pinged with an urgent alert tone. It was a push notification from my bank. Alert. New login attempt detected. Device, iPhone 15 Pro. Location, Briar Glen. CT. If this was not you, please secure your account immediately. My heart hammered against my ribs. Briar Glen. I did not have an iPhone 15. I had an older model, but I knew who had just upgraded. Ethan. My mind raced back 2 years. I had been on a business trip in Chicago, and there had been some issue with a transfer for the parents' anniversary gift. My mother had been hysterical, claiming the card was declined at the restaurant. In a moment of panic and exhaustion, I had given her my login password so she could see the transfer was pending. I had told her to forget it immediately after. I had assumed she did. I unlocked my phone and tapped the button to deny access. Then, standing there in the fluorescent light of the break room, I went into the security settings. I changed the password to a random string of 16 characters. I changed the security questions. Mother's maiden name? I changed the question. Name of your first pet? I changed the question. I told myself it was probably an accident. Maybe her phone had saved the password from 2 years ago and auto-filled it when she was trying to check something else. Maybe she was trying to check the balance to see if the catering money had cleared, confusing my account with hers. But the device was different. It was Ethan's phone. Why would Ethan be logging into my bank account? I pushed the thought away. I had to focus. I had a meeting with the logistics team in 10 minutes. I could not be the paranoid sister who accused her family of cybercrimes because of a glitch. After work, the sky was already pitch black. The streetlights reflected on the wet pavement as I drove to Harborfield Market. I needed to pick up a bottle of wine and some flowers to bring on Thursday. One did not show up empty-handed to Denise Clark's table. Even if one had paid for the food on it, the market was crowded. People were aggressively maneuvering carts filled with yams and cranberry sauce. I squeezed past a display of pumpkin pies and headed for the floral section. Zoe! Zoe Clark! I froze. I knew that voice. It was the rasp of a smoker trying to project cheerfulness. I turned to see my Aunt Marla waving from the checkout line. Marla was my mother's younger sister, a woman who thrived on drama the way mold thrived on damp drywall. "Hi, Aunt Marla," I said, forcing a smile. I walked over, clutching a bouquet of hydrangeas. "I did not expect to see you here," Marla said, leaning over her cart. She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "I thought you were stuck in the city." I frowned. "I live here." "Marla. In Marrow Bay." "No, I mean working," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "Denise told us you were not coming tomorrow. She said you called her yesterday and said you were just too busy for family now, that you had some big corporate merger or something and could not be bothered to drive down." The air left my lungs. "What?" I said, my voice sharp. Marla's eyes widened with feigned sympathy. "Oh, Honey, do not look so shocked. We all understand. You have your big career. Denise was heartbroken. Of course. She was crying on the phone to me this morning. She said, I guess we just aren't high class enough for Zoe anymore. But I told her, Denise, let the girl work. If making money is more important to her than tradition, that is her choice. I gripped the plastic wrapping of the flowers so hard it crinkled loudly. My mother had told everyone I was not coming, but she had just asked me to pay for the catering. She had just asked me what time I was arriving. Why would she lie? Unless she didn't want me there, unless she wanted the money, but not the daughter, or maybe she wanted to be the martyr. The poor mother abandoned by her cold, successful child. That narrative played well. It got her sympathy. It got her attention. Actually, Marla, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I am coming. I told Mom I would be there by noon. There must be a misunderstanding. Marla looked disappointed. The juicy gossip was evaporating. Oh, well, that is good then. I guess she just got confused. You know how she gets when she is stressed. I walked away without saying goodbye. I left the flowers in a bucket by the door. I did not buy the wine. I sat in my car in the parking lot, the engine idling, the heater blasted warm air, but I felt freezing. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my text thread with my mother. There it was. I am planning to leave Marrow Bay around 10. She knew. She absolutely knew. Before I could process it, my phone rang. The screen displayed a photo of my brother, Ethan, wearing sunglasses and holding a beer. I stared at it. I did not want to answer, but I needed to know about the login. I needed to hear his voice. I swiped green. Hey, Ethan. Zoe, hey. His voice was too loud, too bright. It was his salesman voice. He used it when he was trying to get me to invest in his crypto schemes or his dropshipping business. How is my favorite sister? I am your only sister, I said dryly. Details. Listen, I am in a bit of a jam, and you are the only one who can help me out. Here it comes. I thought, what is it, Ethan? Okay, so, you know that credit card you have? The sapphire one? The one that gets the crazy travel points? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. I had that card. I used it for work expenses and paid it off every month. It had a high limit. Yeah, why? So, I found this killer deal for a family weekend in January, a cabin up in Vermont, skiing, hot tub, the works. Mom and Dad really need a break, you know? Mom has been so stressed with the charity. Anyway, the deal expires in like an hour. I wanted to book it for us as a Christmas gift, but my card is, well, you know, I had to replace it because of that fraud thing last month. He had not had fraud. He had maxed it out buying online poker credits. So, he continued, not waiting for me to speak. I was wondering if you could just give me the numbers. You know, the 16 digits, the expiration, and the code on the back. I will write you a check as soon as we book it. I promise. Plus, you get the points. It's a win-win. I closed my eyes. He wanted my credit card number, over the phone, after his device had tried to log into my bank account that morning. Ethan, I said, my voice steady. Did you try to log into my bank account this morning? There was a pause, a beat of silence that lasted too long. What? No. Why would I do that? That is crazy. Zoe, you are being paranoid. The denial was too fast. I got an alert. Ethan, it was an iPhone 15 in Briar Glen. You are the only person I know there with that phone. He laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. Wow. Okay. So now I am a hacker? I am trying to do something nice for Mom and Dad, trying to plan a holiday for the family, and you are accusing me of trying to steal from you? That is rich. Zoe, that is really rich. I am not giving you my card number. Ethan, if you want to book the trip, I can look at it later and book it myself if I think it is a good idea, but I'm not giving you the numbers. His tone flipped instantly. The cheerfulness vanished, replaced by a sneering nastiness that sounded exactly like my mother when she did not get her way. God, you are so stingy. You know that? You sit up there in your fancy apartment with your corporate job and you hoard everything. You have changed. Zoe, Ever since you started acting corporate, you think you are better than us. You think we are all just trying to use you. You are asking me for money. Ethan, that is the definition of using me. I am asking for a favor. For family. But forget it. Forget I asked. Keep your precious points. I hope they keep you warm when you are alone. He hung up. I sat in the silence of the car. The hum of the engine the only sound. I felt sick. My stomach churned with a mixture of guilt and anger. Was I stingy? Was I paranoid? Maybe he really just wanted to book a trip. No. The bank alert. The lie to Aunt Marla. The catering invoice for a woman named Jen. It was all connected. I just did not know how yet. I drove home on autopilot. I did not eat dinner. I took a shower, scrubbing my skin until it was pink, trying to wash off the feeling of the conversation. 2 days passed. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. The office was quiet. Most people had already left for the holiday. I was wrapping up a report, looking forward to the 4-day weekend. Even if it was going to be spent in the war zone of my parents' house, I had decided I would go. I would go. I would bring wine. I would be polite. And I would leave early. I would prove Aunt Marla wrong. I would prove to myself that I could handle them. At 4:15 in the afternoon, my phone vibrated on my desk. It was a text from Denise. I picked it up, expecting a request for cranberries or a reminder to dress nicely. The message was short. Denise Clark, you're banned. Idiot. Don't embarrass us. I stared at the screen. The words swam before my eyes. You're banned. Idiot. Don't embarrass us. I read it again and again. My first reaction was a physical blow to the chest, a sharp intake of breath. The little girl inside me, the one who just wanted to please them, curled up and started to cry. What had I done? Had Ethan told her I refused the trip? Had she found out I spoke to Marla? But then, as I stared at the harsh, glowing letters, something else washed over me. It started in my shoulders, a loosening of the tension that had been there for a decade. It moved down my spine. She had banned me. She had explicitly, in writing, told me not to come. I did not have to drive to Briar Glen. I did not have to listen to the passive-aggressive comments. I did not have to watch them spend my money while they mocked my choices. They did not want me there, and if they did not want me, they surely did not want the things that came with me. Relief mixed with grief. I grieved the family I wanted, the one that loved me unconditionally, but I felt an incredible, light-headed relief about the family I actually had. I did not reply. I did not type, "Why?" or "Please, Mom." I did not call her crying. I placed the phone gently on the desk, face up, so the message was still visible. A reminder, a contract. I turned back to my monitors. I closed the work logistics software. I opened a new browser window. I logged into my Verizon account. I navigated to the Manage Lines section. There they were. 3 lines, mine, Graham, Denise. I clicked on Graham Clark, option, suspend service or cancel line. I clicked cancel line. A warning box popped up. Are you sure? This action is permanent. Any remaining device balance will be due immediately. I clicked yes. I clicked on Denise Clark, cancel line, reason for cancellation? I typed, user no longer requires service, confirm. I watched the screen refresh. The lines were gone. My bill dropped from $240 to $80. I opened the insurance portal. Policy number ending in 4492. Ethan Clark, 2018, Honda Civic, remove driver, effective date? I looked at the calendar. Today, immediately, I clicked submit. I opened my banking app. Recurring transfer. Mom and Dad. Loan repayment. $500 on dollars. Monthly. I hovered the mouse over the trash can icon. This was the big one. This was the one that kept the roof over their heads, or so they said. But if I was banned, if I was an idiot, then surely an idiot's money was not good enough for them. I clicked delete. I went through the list with the precision I used for the Q3 audit. Netflix password? Changed. Hulu? Logged out all devices. Amazon Prime family sharing? Revoked. The authorized user card on my American Express? Cancelled. I did not do it with rage. I did not smash the keyboard. I did it with a cold, terrifying calm. I was simply reconciling the books. I was correcting an imbalance. They had rewritten the narrative to say I was the problem. They had told the world I had abandoned them. Fine, I would make the narrative true. I sat back in my chair, the office lights humming above me. My phone was silent. They did not know yet. The cell service would cut off in maybe an hour. The insurance letter would arrive in 3 days. The missing money would be noticed on the 1st of the month. I looked out the window at the dark water of the Sound. The tide was going out. "Happy Thanksgiving," I whispered to the empty room. Then I reached for my mouse to open my credit report. If I was cleaning house, I was going to clean it all. I needed to see exactly what else was attached to the name Zoe Clark. Because if my mother called me an idiot, she was right about one thing. Only an idiot would keep paying for the people who were holding the knife. I waited for the report to load, the little spinning wheel turning round and round, winding up the truth that was about to explode my life. The screen flashed, the report opened, and the first thing I saw was a credit inquiry from a week ago. Creditor: Pike Bridge Solutions. I leaned in, my eyes narrowing. Pike. As in Ronan Pike. The game was not just about Thanksgiving dinner. It was much, much bigger, and I had just cut the only lifeline they had. The glow of my laptop screen was the only light in the room as I drafted the email. I had written hundreds of emails like this at Narrowgate Marine, termination notices to underperforming vendors, cease and desist warnings to logistics partners who violated safety protocols. I knew the language of severance. It had to be cold, precise, and leave no room for interpretation. Subject: financial responsibility and service cancellation. Dear Mom, Dad, and Ethan. Effective immediately. I have ceased all payments for the following accounts: Verizon Wireless Family Plan, Geico Auto Insurance, policy ending in 4492, and the monthly personal transfer to the shared household account. I have also removed my credit card information from all shared streaming services and online retailers. Do not attempt to restore these services using my information. This decision is final. Zoe. I hovered the cursor over the send button. My finger trembled. Just a fraction. This was not a vendor. This was the woman who had taught me to tie my shoes. This was the man who had taught me to ride a bike. But they were also the people who had taught me that love was a transaction, and I was currently overdrawn. I clicked send. The swoosh sound of the email departing felt like a guillotine blade dropping. I did not wait for the explosion. I picked up my phone and opened the family group chat. I tapped the settings. Mute notifications. Always. Then I went a step further. I opened my contacts and set their individual ringtones to silent. I needed to work tomorrow. I needed to function. I could not do that if I was flinching every time my pocket buzzed. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. The silence in the apartment was profound. For the first time in 10 years, my bank account was mine. The money I earned tomorrow would stay with me. It felt like taking a breath after being underwater for a decade. The reaction was not immediate, which was worse. It was a creeping, seeping poison that I discovered the next morning on my lunch break. I was sitting in the company cafeteria, picking at a salad I had no appetite for. When I opened social media, I usually avoided Facebook. It was a curated museum of other people's happiness. But I knew my mother, Denise Clark, did not fight battles in private. She fought them on the stage of public opinion. There it was, posted 2 hours ago, a picture of my parents' living room in Briar Glen. The fireplace was lit, the stockings were hung, and the table was set with the good china. It looked cozy. It looked inviting. It looked like a lie. The caption read, "It is heartbreaking when you raise children to be strong and independent, only to watch them become cold and heartless." Some people forget where they came from. Some people think their fancy jobs and big cities make them too good for the parents who sacrificed everything for them. We will have an empty chair at the table this Thanksgiving because of toxic choices, but we will fill it with love and prayer. Hold your babies close, friends. You never know when they will turn on you over a few dollars. It had 42 likes. Comments were pouring in. "Oh, Denise, I am so sorry. Sending prayers. Kids these days have no respect. You are a saint. Stay strong. D. You do not need that negativity. She had not named me. She did not have to. Everyone in our small circle knew I was the one with the fancy job and the city apartment. She had painted a masterpiece of victimhood. And I was the villain holding the brush. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. Toxic. She called me toxic because I stopped paying for a 29-year-old man's car insurance. She called me heartless because I refused to be an ATM. I wanted to comment. I wanted to type out the itemized list of every dollar I had sent them since 2015. I wanted to post the screenshot of the text calling me an idiot, but I didn't. That was what she wanted. She wanted a fight. She wanted engagement. If I commented, I validated her narrative. I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket. My hands were shaking. I walked back to my office, keeping my head down, focusing on the rhythmic click of my heels on the linoleum. I am a professional. I told myself, I am a finance operations manager. I deal with facts, not fiction. At 2 o'clock, my desk phone rang. The landline. They never called the landline. I had given them the number years ago for emergencies only. I stared at the display. External call. I picked it up. Narrowgate Marine. This is Zoe. Zoe? It was my father. Graham Clark. His voice sounded thin, reedy, like it was being squeezed out of him. He was not shouting. He sounded terrified. Dad, is everything okay? Is Mom okay? The instinct to protect was instantaneous, overriding the anger. She is upset. Zoe, you know how she gets. But listen, I need to ask you something. He lowered his voice. I could hear the background noise of the television. A game show. He must be in the den. Hiding. Did you mean to cancel the phone lines? Or was it a glitch? Because I got a text from Verizon saying the service is suspended. It was not a glitch. Dad, I sent you an email. I am cutting off the bills. All of them. There was a silence on the line, heavy and static-filled. Zoe, please, you have to turn it back on. Just the phones. Please. Dad, it is $200 a month. You and Mom have a pension. Ethan works, supposedly. You can pay for your own phones. No, you do not understand. It is not about the money. Then what is it about? He hesitated. I heard him take a ragged breath. The paperwork. Zoe. The accounts. Everything is linked to that number. The two-factor codes. The notifications. If the number goes dead, I can't access the things I need to manage the household. It will mess up the paperwork. I frowned. Paperwork? My father had not managed paperwork since 2010. My mother handled everything. What paperwork? Dad? What accounts are you talking about? Just things, house things. Look, if the number is gone, we get locked out. It triggers security freezes. Please, Zoe, just turn it on for 1 more month. I will pay you back. I swear. His desperation was palpable. It wasn't the annoyance of a man losing a luxury. It was the panic of a man losing a cover. Dad, if you have accounts linked to that number, you can just call Verizon and assume the liability for the line. You can keep the number. You just have to pay for it. Transfer the billing responsibility to your name. He went silent again. I can't, he whispered. My credit score. They won't let me open a postpaid account. Denise says we are maxed out. We are maxed out. The phrase hung in the air. Dad, what do you mean maxed out? The house is paid off. You have the pension. Where is the money going? I have to go, he said abruptly. She is coming. The line clicked dead. I sat there, holding the receiver, the dial tone buzzing in my ear like an angry insect. It triggers security freezes. We are maxed out. This was not just about freeloading. My father was afraid. I hung up the phone and turned immediately to my computer. I needed to see. I had looked at the bank statements, but I had not looked deep enough. I needed the credit report. I had glanced at it yesterday and seen the inquiry from Pike Bridge Solutions, but I had been too emotional to process the rest. I logged back into the credit monitoring service. I pulled the full, detailed report, the 50-page PDF that listed every open account, every inquiry, every address associated with my social security number. I started scrolling. Student loans, paid in full. Chase Sapphire card, paid in full. Nordstrom store card, balance 0. Then, halfway down page 6, I stopped. Account name, luxury home furnishings, more. Status, open. Date, opened, October 14th, 2025. Current balance, $4,200. Payment history, current. Minimum payments only. I did not have a luxury home furnishings account. I bought my furniture from IKEA and assembled it myself with an Allen wrench. I looked at the contact information associated with the account. Address, 14 Maple Drive, Briar Glen. CT, my parents' house. Phone, 203-555-0199. My parents' home line. Email, Zoe, Clark, Briar Glen email, com. I stared at the email address. It looked real. It looked like something I might have created 10 years ago. But I hadn't. I had never used that provider. Someone had created an email address in my name to intercept the billing statements so I would never see them. My hands flew across the keyboard. I opened a new tab and typed in the domain for the email provider. I tried to log in with the address. Zoe Clark Briar Glenemail, com, password. I tried my usual passwords. Incorrect. I tried my mother's birthday. Incorrect. I tried my father's birthday. Incorrect. I tried Thanksgiving. Incorrect. Then I tried Ethan 123. Login successful. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. The inbox loaded. It was full of unread messages. Your statement is ready. Luxury home furnishings. Payment confirmation. Wayfair. Overdue notice. Affirm financing. Welcome to Klarna. I clicked on the sent folder. It was empty. This email address existed for one purpose: to be a digital dumpsters for debt notifications taken out in my name. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. Identity theft. It wasn't a stranger in Russia or a hacker in a basement. It was my family. They were using my good credit rating as a resource, mining it like a vein of gold. I printed the pages. The printer whirred in the corner of my office, spitting out the proof of their betrayal. I was reaching for the stapler when my office door opened. It was Sarah, the head of compliance. She didn't knock. She looked grim. Zoe, do you have a minute? We need to talk. Sarah never came to my office. We emailed. We saw each other in meetings. If she was here, it was bad. Sure. Sarah, what is up? I tried to keep my voice steady, shuffling the credit report pages under a stack of invoices. She closed the door behind her and sat down. She held a folder against her chest. We are doing a routine vendor audit for the end of the year, she said. Standard stuff, but we flagged a payment in the logistics queue. It was processed last week. A small expedited shipping fee for a container of marine parts coming from a supplier in Rhode Island. Okay, I said. Expedited fees happen. The fee isn't the problem, Sarah said. The problem is the routing number on the invoice. Our system flagged it because it matches a routing number on a federal watch list for fraudulent charitable donation processors. My blood ran cold. What? Sarah opened the folder and slid a paper across the desk. It was a printout of a bank transfer. The routing number matches a shell company that processes payments for unverified nonprofits, she explained. It is often used to wash money or evade taxes. We traced the routing number in our system to see if we had ever paid it before. We found a match. She pointed to a line on the paper. Beneficiary. Second table outreach. The room spun. Second table outreach. My mother's charity. But we do not do business with charities, I stammered. Narrowgate is a marine logistics firm. Why would we be paying them? We didn't pay them directly, Sarah said. But the bank account used for this expedited shipping vendor, a company called Pike Logistics, is the same bank account used by Second Table Outreach. And Zoe, your name is listed as a secondary authorized contact on the Second Table Outreach filings. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My mother had put my name on the filings. Of course she had. She needed a respectable name. A name with a finance background. And now, a vendor called Pike Logistics, Ronan Pike, was billing my company. Sarah, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I did not authorize that. I do not know anything about Pike Logistics. I believe you. Zoe, Sarah said gently, you are the best operations manager we have, but this is a conflict of interest level red. If you are on the board of a charity that shares a bank account with a vendor you approved payments to, it looks like embezzlement. It looks like kickbacks. I did not approve Pike Logistics. I said, I have never heard of them. Someone used your override code to approve the vendor setup last month. Sarah said, my override code. I closed my eyes. Last month, I had visited my parents for my father's birthday. I had brought my work laptop. I had left it open on the kitchen table while I went to the bathroom. Ethan had been there. Ronan had stopped by for cake. They had not just stolen my money, they were stealing my career. We have to open a formal investigation. Zoe, Sarah said, I am sorry. Until it is cleared up, your approval privileges are suspended. You can stay at your desk, but you cannot sign off on any funds. She stood up and walked out. I sat there, frozen. The humiliation was total. I was the person who caught mistakes. I was the person who ensured compliance. And now I was the suspect. I waited until 5 o'clock. I did not do any work. I couldn't. I spent 3 hours staring at the wall, putting the pieces together. Ronan Pike, he was the center. My mother was the vehicle. Ethan was the tool. And I was the fuel. I needed to know what second table outreach actually was. I pulled up the state's public registry for nonprofits. I searched the name. Second Table Outreach. Director, Denise Clark. Treasurer, Ronan Pike. Secretary, Zoe Clark. There it was, my name. Without my signature, without my consent. I looked at the registered address. 440 Industrial Way, Suite B, New Haven. I opened Google Maps and typed in the address. I switched to Street View. 440 Industrial Way was a dilapidated warehouse with a for lease sign in the window. There was no Suite B. There was just a rusted roll-up door and a dumpster overflowing with cardboard. I went to the charity's website. It was a Squarespace template. The photos of our work were obvious stock images. I recognized the soup kitchen photo. It was the first result if you searched volunteers serving food on Getty Images. The donors page listed names I didn't recognize, except for one. Pike Bridge Solutions, Platinum Partner. It was a loop. The charity collected donations, paid Pike Bridge Solutions for consulting, and Pike Bridge Solutions presumably kicked money back to whom? My parents? Ethan? Or just Ronan? And now they were trying to funnel money from my company into this loop. I shut down my computer. I felt dirty. I felt contaminated. I drove home in a daze. The holiday lights on the lampposts in downtown Marrow Bay looked blurry through the rain on my windshield. When I got to the watchtower, I pulled into the underground garage. I just wanted to go upstairs, pour a glass of whiskey, and sleep until this nightmare ended. But when I walked into the lobby, he was there. Ethan. He was sitting on one of the leather benches near the security desk, holding a white bakery box. He was wearing a nice peacoat, one I had probably paid for, and his hair was styled. He stood up when he saw me, a wide, boyish grin plastering his face. Zoe! There she is, the working girl. He walked toward me, holding out the box. I brought peace credentials, apple crumb pie, from the bakery you like on Main Street, the one with the expensive cinnamon. I stopped 10 feet away from him. I did not smile. What are you doing here? Ethan? He faltered, his grin slipping just a little. I came to see my sister. Mom is freaking out. Zoe. She is really upset about the email. I told her. Mom, Zoe is just stressed. She does not mean it. I told her I would come talk to you. Smooth things over. He took a step closer. Look, I know we ask for a lot. I get it. But you can't just cut us off like that. Dad is panicked about the paperwork. He says he can't get into his accounts. His accounts, I repeated flatly. You mean the accounts he uses to commit fraud? Ethan's face hardened. His eyes darted to the security guard at the desk. who was watching us over the top of a magazine. "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "Nobody is committing fraud. You are being dramatic. I know about the email address. Ethan, Zoe Clark Briar Glenn. I know about the luxury home furnishings account. I know you used my override code at work to approve a vendor." Ethan flinched. The color drained from his face. "You checked the work logs?" he whispered. I stared at him. He didn't deny it. He just wanted to know how much I knew. "I am suspended. Ethan, because of you, because of Ronan." He licked his lips. He looked suddenly very young and very scared. "Zoe, listen, it is not what you think. Ronan, he says it is temporary. We just needed to move some cash flow through a verified vendor to unlock a grant for the charity. He said he would pay it back. He said Narrowgate wouldn't even notice. Narrowgate noticed. I said, and now I am the one facing an investigation." Ethan stepped forward, reaching for my arm. The pie box tilted dangerously. "You have to fix it. Zoe, you are good at this stuff. Just tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you authorized it verbally. If you don't, if they look too deep, Ronan is going to be really angry, and Mom doesn't know about the vendor thing. She thinks Ronan is just helping us with investments." "You are asking me to lie to federal auditors to protect a scam artist? I am asking you to help your family," he shouted. The security guard stood up. Ethan lowered his voice again. "Desperate. If this blows up, Dad loses the house. Ronan holds the mortgage note now. Did you know that? They refinanced with him. Private lending. If we stop paying him, he takes the house. We need the money. Zoe, we need your credit." I looked at him. I looked at the brother I had defended on the playground, the brother I had bought books for, the brother I had insured. He was not a victim. He was an accomplice. "Get out," I said. "Zoe, please." I turned to the security guard. "Mike, this man is harassing me. He is not allowed up. Please ask him to leave." Mike, a large man who had seen me come home late every night for 3 years, stepped out from behind the desk. "You heard the lady. Son, time to go." Ethan looked at me with pure venom. The charm was gone. The mask was off. "You are going to regret this," he spat. "You think you are safe here? You are nothing without us. You are just a lonely workaholic with a cat and a spreadsheet." "I don't have a cat," I said. He turned and stormed out, throwing the pie box into the trash can by the door. It made a heavy thud. I went upstairs. I did not turn on the lights. I sat on the floor of my living room and shook. 20 minutes later, my buzzer rang. I jumped. If it was him, I was calling the police. I checked the monitor. It was Kira. I buzzed her in. Kira Holloway had been my best friend since freshman orientation. She was a public defender, which meant she had seen worse humanity than my family, but not by much. She walked in wearing rain boots and carrying 2 bottles of wine. She took one look at my face and set the bottles on the counter. "Okay," she said. "I brought the cheap stuff for drinking and the good stuff for throwing at the wall. Which one do we need?" "Both," I said. We sat on the rug. I told her everything: the email, the post, the credit report, the fake email account, the charity fraud, the vendor scheme at work, Ethan's visit. Kira listened. She did not interrupt. She drank her wine and watched me with dark, intelligent eyes. When I finished, I was breathless. I felt hollowed out. They refinanced the house with Ronan. I whispered, "If I stop paying, they lose the house." That is what Ethan said. Kira swirled her glass. "So?" she asked. I looked at her. "So? They are my parents." Kira, "If they lose the house, where do they go? They are adults." Zoe, "They made a choice to sign a mortgage with a loan shark. They made a choice to commit identity theft against their own daughter." She leaned forward. "Let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly, not as the good daughter, as the operations manager." She waited until I met her gaze. "If your money disappeared tomorrow, if you lost your job, your savings, your credit score, would they still want you at the table?" The question hung in the air. I thought about the ban. Your band, idiot. I thought about the blurred invoice. I thought about Ethan asking for my credit card number while I was accused of fraud. No. I said, my voice broke. No, they wouldn't. Then you do not have a family. Zoe, Kira said softly, you have a liability. And what do you do with a liability that threatens the solvency of the firm? I wiped a tear from my cheek. You liquidate it. I said, exactly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a notepad. We are going to document everything. Tonight. Every text. Every email. We are going to download the metadata from that fake email account if we can guess the password again. We are going to map the flow of money. She uncapped a pen. And tomorrow morning, you are going to call a friend of mine. Her name is Alyssa Venn. She is a consumer rights attorney who eats predatory lenders for breakfast. She is expensive, but you can afford her because you are not paying for your brother's car insurance anymore. I nodded. I stood up and walked to my desk. I grabbed my laptop, the stack of credit reports, and the printed email chain. I brought them to the coffee table. Zoe? Kira asked. Are you ready to burn it down? I looked at the stack of papers. It was not just paper. It was my freedom. I am not burning it down. I said, I am just turning on the lights. And if they can't handle the glare, that is not my problem. I opened a new spreadsheet. Tab 1. Unauthorized accounts. Tab 2. Second table outreach discrepancies. Tab 3. Ronan Pike. I started typing. The tears stopped. The cold calm returned. I was Zoe Clark. I was good at this, and I was about to conduct the most aggressive audit of my life. Alyssa Venn's office did not look like the kind of place where families were dismantled. It was situated in a glass-walled building in downtown Morro Bay, overlooking the same gray harbor I stared at from my own desk. The room smelled of expensive leather and lemon polish. There were no pictures of children or dogs, only framed degrees and abstract art that looked like tangled wire. Alyssa sat across from me, her fingers resting lightly on the stack of documents I had compiled with Kira the night before. She was older than me, perhaps 50, with a sharp, angular bob and glasses that magnified the intensity of her gaze. She had spent the last 20 minutes reading in silence. The only sound was the soft rustle of pages turning. My credit report, the fake email logs, the screenshot of the catering invoice, the text banning me from dinner. Finally, she closed the folder and placed her hands flat on the mahogany desk. Zoe, she said. Her voice was low and devoid of the pity I had expected. I want to be very clear about what I'm seeing here. You came to me asking about consumer rights and debt disputes, but this file does not describe a dispute. It describes a crime scene. I swallowed hard. The word crime felt heavy, industrial. It did not fit the image of my mother baking pies or my father falling asleep in his recliner. It is just bad boundaries, I said, hearing the defensive reflex in my own voice. They are bad with money. They panicked. Alyssa shook her head slowly. This is not panic. Zoe. Panic is a one-time missed payment. Panic is asking to borrow $500. This is a pattern. She tapped the spreadsheet where I had highlighted the dates. Look at the timeline. The identity theft. The creation of the email address Zoe Clark Briar Glenn happened 3 years ago. The unauthorized retail account was opened 2 weeks later. The addition of your name to the charity board happened 6 months ago. These are premeditated actions. They required planning, execution, and maintenance. She leaned forward. In the legal world, we call this coerced debt and familial identity theft. It is incredibly common, and it is incredibly difficult to prosecute because the victims rarely want to see their parents in handcuffs. But you need to understand the position you're in. You can dispute these accounts. You can file an affidavit of fraud with the credit bureaus. You can likely get the debt erased from your name. I felt a surge of hope. That is what I want. I just want it gone. But, Alyssa continued, her voice hardening slightly, the creditors will not just write off the loss. Once you prove you did not sign for this debt, they will go after the people who did. If you file a police report to clear your name, which is often required for identity theft claims of this size, the investigation will lead directly to the IP address at 14 Maple Drive. I stared at her. The implications settled over me like a shroud. You mean I have to choose? I said, "Yes," she said. "You can protect your financial future and your professional reputation, or you can protect your parents from the legal consequences of their actions. You cannot do both. If you shield them, you assume the debt, you validate the fraud. And based on what you have told me about this Ronan Pike character, if you validate it once, they will do it again." I looked out the window. A seagull was fighting against the wind, trying to land on a railing. "If I report it," I asked, my voice trembling, "will they go to jail?" "That depends on the scale and the prosecutor," Alyssa said. "But they would certainly face criminal charges. Fraud, larceny, identity theft." I thought of my father. I thought of his terrified whisper on the phone, "It will mess up the paperwork." He knew. He might not have clicked the buttons, but he knew. I cannot send them to prison. "Alyssa, I can't. Then you have a very narrow path to walk," she said. "We need to stop the bleeding immediately. You need to lock every door they have keys to, and you need to retrieve any sensitive documents they still have in their possession, if they have your physical Social Security card or your passport. This freeze is just a speed bump." She pushed a notepad toward me. "Freeze your credit, now, here in the office, and change your security questions, not to things they do not know, to things that are not true. If the question is your mother's maiden name, the answer should be submarine. If the question is your high school mascot, the answer should be plutonium. Do not give them a puzzle they can solve. Give them a wall." I took the pen. I pulled out my phone. For the next hour, I sat in that sterile office and systematically erased my family's access to my life. I logged into the credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I clicked the buttons to freeze my files. I generated PINs that were random strings of numbers. When I got to the security questions for my main bank account, I hesitated. Question: what is the name of your favorite teacher? My mother knew that. Mrs. Gable, 3rd grade. I typed in Avalanche. Question: what was the make of your first car? Ethan knew that. He had crashed it. I typed in silence. Every click felt like a betrayal. Every saved change felt like I was severing a limb. But beneath the guilt, there was something else. A strange, cold clarity. I was building a fortress. For 33 years, I had lived in a house without walls, where anyone could walk in and take what they wanted. Now, I was laying bricks. When I finished, I looked up at Alyssa. "It is done," I said. "Good," she said. "Now, go get your documents. And Zoe, do not go alone if you can help it. I have to go alone." I said, "If I bring anyone, they will put on a show. I need to catch them when the curtain is down." The drive to Briar Glen took 2 hours, but it felt like 10 minutes. My mind was racing, rehearsing conversations, anticipating lies. It was Wednesday afternoon, the day before Thanksgiving. The traffic was thick with people driving home to families they actually wanted to see. I turned onto Maple Drive at 3 o'clock. The sky was a bruised purple, the sun already dipping below the tree line. The street looked exactly as it always did. Manicured lawns, inflatable turkeys on porches, leaves raked into neat piles. My parents' house was number 14. It was a white colonial with black shutters. It looked respectable. It looked solvent. I pulled my car into the driveway, parking behind my father's sedan. Ethan's car was there too, the Honda Civic I had paid to insure for 3 years. I took a deep breath. Get the box. Get out. I did not have a key anymore. I had left it on the counter the last time I visited, a subconscious attempt to distance myself that had now become a logistical hurdle. I rang the bell. I heard footsteps. Then the lock turned. My mother opened the door. She was wearing an apron over her sweater. She looked flushed, her hair perfectly sprayed into place. When she saw me, her face went through a complicated series of contortions: shock, anger, calculation, and finally, a saccharine, tight-lipped smile. "Zoe!" she exclaimed, though her voice lacked any real warmth. "I thought you were banned, or did you come to your senses and realize you cannot spend Thanksgiving alone?" I did not smile back. "I'm not staying for dinner, Mom, and I'm not here to apologize." Her smile faltered. Then why are you here? To ruin the mood? Ethan is making his famous punch. Your father is watching football. We were having a nice time. I stepped past her into the foyer. The house smelled of cinnamon and sage, a scent that used to make me feel safe but now just smelled like a mask. I am here to get my things, I said, my personal documents, the file box from my closet, and then I am leaving. I walked toward the stairs. Denise scrambled after me, her heels clicking rapidly on the hardwood. Your things? She hissed, dropping the sweet act. What things? You have not lived here in 10 years. We do not have your things. I cleaned that room out ages ago to turn it into a guest room. Not that we ever have guests, since you embarrassed us in front of everyone. I stopped on the landing and turned to face her. She was standing at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at me with eyes that were hard and bright. You opened a credit account at Luxury Home Furnishings in my name, Mom, I said, 2 weeks ago. The silence that followed was absolute. The television murmured from the den. Canned laughter from a sitcom. Denise did not blink. I have no idea what you're talking about. I know about the email address, I continued, keeping my voice level. Zoe. Clark Briar Glen. I know about the invoices. I know about the routing number shared with Pike Logistics. Her face went pale, but her jaw set in a stubborn line. You are delusional, she spat. You have been working too hard. You are imagining things to make yourself the victim. We would never do that. I turned and walked up the stairs. I did not have the energy to argue with a gaslight. I went into my old bedroom. It did not look like a guest room. It looked like a storage unit. Boxes were stacked against the walls, old exercise equipment draped with clothes. But the closet was still there. I opened the closet door, the top shelf. That was where I kept it. A gray metal lockbox containing my birth certificate, my social security card, the deed to my car, and a copy of my passport. The shelf was empty. I felt a cold spike of adrenaline. I tossed the other boxes aside. Old yearbooks, winter coats, Christmas decorations, nothing. I turned around. My mother was standing in the doorway. She had her arms crossed. I told you, she said casually. I cleaned. I threw a lot of that old junk out. You threw out my social security card? I asked, my voice rising. You threw out my passport? She shrugged. I did not look inside every box. Zoe, I just cleared the clutter. Maybe if you visited more often, you could have organized it yourself. She was lying. I could see it in the way her eyes flicked toward the hallway, toward the master bedroom. She had moved it. I walked toward her. Where is it? Mom? I do not have it, she shouted, her voice shrill. God, you are hysterical. You come into my house. You accuse me of crimes. You scream about boxes. You are unhinged. Graham appeared in the hallway behind her. He looked older than he had last week. His skin was gray, papery. He wore a cardigan that hung loosely on his frame. What is going on? He asked weakly. Denise? Zoe? She's accusing us of stealing. Graham! Denise shrieked, spinning to face him. She says we stole her identity. Can you believe it? After everything we have done? Graham looked at me. His eyes were watery and full of a profound, exhausting sadness. He did not look surprised. He looked resigned. Dad, I said, stepping past my mother, do you know where my file box is? He opened his mouth, but Denise cut in. He does not know anything. He has been napping. Get out. Zoe, get out of my house before I call the police. The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Call them. I wanted to say, please call them, but I looked at my father. He gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of his head. Then, as Denise turned to march back down the stairs, he stepped close to me. I am sorry, he whispered. It was barely a breath. I looked at him. Sorry for what? Dad? For the box? For the credit cards? He didn't answer. He just looked at the floor. Defeated. I realized then that I wasn't going to find the box. Not today. If I tore the house apart, Denise would physically stop me. She would make a scene that would end with the police actually coming. and I wasn't ready to explain to a patrol officer why I was looting my parents' bedroom. "I'll be back," I said to my father, "and I will have a lawyer with me next time." I walked down the stairs, past my mother who was standing by the front door, holding it open like a bouncer. "You are not welcome here," she hissed as I passed. "You are dead to us." I walked out into the cold air. I was shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so pure it felt like it was burning my skin. They had taken the core documents of my existence and hidden them. They were holding my identity hostage. I reached for my car door handle. "Zoe." I turned. Ethan was standing by the garage. He was smoking a cigarette, something I hadn't seen him do in years. He wasn't wearing a coat. He looked shivering and small against the siding of the house. He did not look like the arrogant brother who had demanded my credit card. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in a week. "What do you want?" "Ethan?" I asked, keeping my hand on the door. "You need to unfreeze the credit," he said. His voice was flat. I laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Are you kidding me? After what I just found inside? Mom says she threw my social security card away. She didn't throw it away." Ethan said, "Ronan has it." The name stopped me cold. "Ronan? Why does Ronan have my social security card?" Ethan took a drag of the cigarette, his hand trembling. "Collateral," he said. "He likes to have leverage, in case we miss a payment." I stared at him. "You gave a loan shark my social security card?" Ethan looked away, kicking at a loose piece of gravel. "He isn't a loan shark." "Exactly. He is a private equity consultant. But yeah, he lends money. Short term, high interest." "How much?" I asked. "How much do you owe him?" Ethan grimaced. "It is complicated. It started with the roof. Then there was a business idea I had. Look, it snowballed, okay? We owe him about $50,000. $50,000, and why?" I asked slowly. "Did you need my credit?" "Because Ronan stopped lending to us." Ethan said, "He said we were tapped out, but he said if we could show familial stability, he could open a new line. He helped Mom set up the accounts in your name. He said as long as you kept paying the bills, the phone, the insurance, the transfers, it showed that the family had cash flow. He used your credit score to underwrite the risk. I felt like I was going to be sick, so I wasn't just paying for the phone." I said, "I was the guarantor." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, basically, but you were paying. It was working. Until you cut it off yesterday. Ronan called this morning. He's not happy. Zoe. He says if the cash flow stops, he calls the note. All of it. Immediately. And what happens if you can't pay?" Ethan looked at the house. "He puts a lien on the property, or worse, he knows people. Zoe. He is not just some guy from the country club." I looked at my brother. I saw the terror in his eyes, but I also saw the profound selfishness that had led us here. He had sold me out to save himself. That sounds like a you problem. "Ethan," I said. He dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his shoe. "Don't be a bitch. Zoe. If he comes after us, he comes after you too. He has your info. He has your card. He has stolen property." I said, "And if he tries to use it, he will go to jail, and so will you." I opened my car door and got in. "Fix it." "Zoe," Ethan yelled as I started the engine. "Just pay the bills." I reversed out of the driveway without looking back. The drive back to Marrow Bay was a blur. I was operating on adrenaline and fear. $50,000. My social security card in the hands of a predator. My parents compliant in their own extortion. I was crossing the bridge into the city when my phone rang. It was connected to the car's Bluetooth. Incoming call. "Sarah, Narrowgate Compliance." I didn't want to answer. I wanted to throw the phone into the river, but I tapped the screen. "This is Zoe." "Zoe, it is Sarah. I'm calling to give you a heads up before the official email goes out tomorrow." Her voice was grave. "What is it?" "Sarah?" The audit team finished the preliminary review of the Pike Logistics vendor file. They found a secondary link. My hands tightened on the wheel. "What link?" "The bank account for Pike Logistics, the one that received the payment, has a recurring outflow transfer. It goes to an account registered to a residential address in Briar Glen, 14 Maple Drive. I closed my eyes. They were paying him. And he was paying them back? No, that didn't make sense. Wait, I said, money is going from Pike to my parents? Yes, Sarah said. It looks like a kickback structure. We pay the vendor. The vendor takes a cut and sends the rest to the residence. And since that residence is your permanent address on file from your hiring paperwork, it looks like I am funneling company money to myself. I finished. Exactly. Zoe, this is serious. The amount is small right now, just that one expedited fee. But the structure is classic embezzlement. Corporate legal is drafting a formal suspension letter. You will be placed on unpaid administrative leave pending a full forensic investigation. You will need to surrender your company laptop and badge on Friday morning. Unpaid leave. Investigation. Sarah, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. I did not do this. I am a victim of identity theft. My family is doing this without my knowledge. I want to believe you. Zoe, Sarah said, but the paper trail leads to your house. You need to get a lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer. The line went dead. I pulled over to the shoulder of the highway. I put the hazard lights on. The rhythmic clicking filled the car. Tick, tick, tick. My career was over. My reputation was gutted. My family had not just used my money. They had weaponized my professional existence to feed their debt to Ronan. I sat there for 5 minutes. I breathed. You need to get a lawyer. I had a lawyer. I had Alyssa. But Alyssa was right. Defensive measures were not enough anymore. I could not just block them. I had to stop them. And to stop them, I had to go to the source. I pulled up the contact list on my phone. I searched for the number I had found on the second table outreach filing. Ronan Pike. I dialed. It rang 3 times. Zoe. A deep, smooth voice answered. There was no hesitation. No. Who is this? He knew my number. I am glad you finally reached out. I did not waste time on pleasantries. You have my social security card. Ronan, I want it back. He chuckled. It was a dry, scratching sound. Direct? I like that. Your mother said you were the sharp one, the corporate one. I know about the scheme. Ronan. I know about the loans. I know about the kickbacks from Narrowgate. Do you? He asked pleasantly. Then you know that you are in a very precarious position. It looks quite bad for you, doesn't it? The dutiful daughter helping her struggling parents by leveraging her position at a major logistics firm. Very noble, very illegal. I didn't do it. I said, can you prove that? He asked. Before you lose your job? Before the police get involved? Because from where I sit, the documents have your name on them. The house has your name on the lease. Oh, did you not know that? We added you to the title when we refinanced, to help with the ratios. I felt the blood drain from my face. I was on the title of the house? You forged my signature. I whispered, technicalities. Ronan said, the point is, Zoe, we are all in this together, a family business, if you will. He paused, letting the threat hang in the air. Here is the reality. Your parents and your brother are drowning. They owe me a significant sum. They promised me that you would stabilize the accounts, that you would cover the shortfall after the holiday. That is why I extended them credit. You were the collateral. My family offered me without my consent. I said, they offered what they had. He corrected, and you are what they had. Now, I am a reasonable man. I do not want to ruin your career. I just want to get paid. What do you want? I asked. Unfreeze the credit, he said. Restore the payments, and perhaps approve a few more expedited shipping invoices at Narrowgate. Just until the balance is cleared. Do that, and the documents disappear. The kickbacks stop. We all go back to a peaceful life. He was trying to turn me into an embezzler. He wanted me to actively steal from my company to pay him off. And if I don't? I asked. Then I call the note on the house. He said, I evict your parents, and I send the full file of our partnership to your boss's boss. Mutually assured destruction. Zoe. But you have more to lose. I stared at the dashboard. The hazard lights were still blinking. I need time, I said. You have until Friday, he said. Happy Thanksgiving. Zoe. He hung up. I sat there for a long time. The trap was perfect. He had used my family's greed and fear to build a cage around me, and now he was handing me the key. But the key was a felony. I could pay him. I could melt the freeze, take out a personal loan, pay off the $50,000, and beg Sarah for mercy. It would save my parents. It would save the house. But I remembered the empty shelf in my closet. I remembered Denise calling me an idiot. I remembered Ethan's sneer. If I paid him, it would never end. I would be his employee forever. I put the car in drive. I merged back onto the highway. I was not going to pay him. I dialed Kira. She answered on the first ring. Are you okay? Did you get the box? No. I said, it is worse, much worse. Ronan Pike is blackmailing me. He wants me to embezzle from Narrowgate. There was a silence on the line. Then Kira's voice came back, cold and sharp as a scalpel. Come to my place. Bring the laptop. I am coming. I said, what are we doing? She asked. I gripped the steering wheel. I am done reacting. Kira, I am done being the victim. He wants to talk about facts? He wants to talk about paper trails? I merged into the fast lane. We are going to map it. We are going to trace every cent. We are going to build a timeline so airtight that when I drop it on the district attorney's desk, it won't matter whose name is on the deed. But Zoe, Kira said softly, if you do that, you know what happens to your parents. I looked at the road ahead. It was dark, but the city lights were glowing in the distance. I know. I said. I hung up. I did not cry. I did not feel guilt. I felt the cold, hard precision of the operations manager taking over. There was a rot in the system. And I was going to cut it out, even if it killed the host. The spreadsheets on Kira's coffee table looked less like a budget and more like a map of a conspiracy. It was 2 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day, though it felt like we had been suspended in a timeless vacuum of forensic accounting since I arrived. The only light came from the glow of our laptops and a single floor lamp that cast long, sharp shadows against the wall. Kira was typing furiously on her keyboard, her glasses reflecting the blue light of the screen. I was holding a highlighter, my hand hovering over a printed bank statement from 2023. Zoe, look at this, Kira said, her voice tight. I leaned over. She had pulled up a transaction history for one of the peer-to-peer payment apps linked to my old email. The real one, not the fake one they had created. See these requests? She asked, pointing to a series of transfers. May 14th, $200 for mom's prescription copay. June 2nd, $150 for dad's physical therapy. August 10th, $300 for emergency vet bill. I nodded. I remembered those. I remembered the panic in my mother's voice, the guilt that had made me transfer the funds immediately. Now look at the destination. Kira said. She clicked on the transaction details. The money did not go to CVS. It did not go to a hospital. It did not go to a veterinary clinic. It went to a user handle. Pikebridge admin. I felt a cold numbness spread through my chest. I searched the handle. Kira said, it is a business account for Pikebridge Solutions. They were not paying doctors. I whispered, they were paying Ronan. It gets worse, Kira said. She switched tabs to a flowchart she had been building. Look at the routing. When you sent larger amounts, like the $1,200 for the water heater replacement last winter, it didn't go straight to Pike. It went to Ethan's Venmo. Then, 3 minutes later, Ethan sent the exact same amount to a Cash App account registered to D. Clark. And then, 10 minutes after that, the money was wired from your parents' joint checking account into Pikebridge Solutions. I stared at the screen. The lines crisscrossed like a spider web. Why? I asked. Why move it around like that? Structuring, Kira said grimly. They were layering the payments. If anyone looked at your parents' bank account, it looked like they were paying a loan from their own funds. If anyone looked at your account, it looked like you were helping your brother or your mom with small personal expenses. They were hiding the direct link between you and Ronan. They knew exactly what they were doing. Zoe. This wasn't desperate people scrambling. This was a system. I sat back on the sofa. the highlighter slipping from my fingers. Intentional hiding. For years, I had told myself my family was just bad with money. I thought they were chaotic, impulsive, and financially illiterate. I had pitied them. I had felt superior to them because I was organized and they were messy. But they weren't messy. They were meticulous. They had built a machine to extract wealth from me and funnel it to a predator. And they had disguised the machinery as love. I stood up and walked to the window. The city was quiet. Most people were sleeping, dreaming of turkey and football. I was awake, staring at the autopsy of my relationship with my parents. I am done, I said. I turned back to Kira. I am not waiting for a lawyer to draft a letter. I am sending an email right now, to all of them. Kira looked at me, then nodded. Do it, but keep it factual. Give them nothing to latch on to emotionally. I opened my laptop. I drafted a new message. I added Denise, Graham, Ethan, and the email address for Ronan Pike I had found on the filing. Subject: Demand for documentation and cessation of payments. To all parties. Effective immediately. I will not authorize, transfer, or release a single cent to any of you. This includes the alleged debt held by Pike Bridge Solutions. I have reviewed my financial records and identified a pattern of deceptive transfers, unauthorized account openings, and misrepresentation of funds. I have evidence that money solicited for medical and household expenses was routed directly to Ronan Pike. I will not entertain any discussion of repayment until I receive the following. 1. The original loan agreement between Graham, Denise Clark, and Pike Bridge Solutions. 2. A full accounting of all principal and interest paid to date. 3. Proof of where the proceeds of these loans were spent. 4. A notarized affidavit explaining why my personal information was used to secure these debts without my consent. If you attempt to contact me with emotional appeals, threats, or guilt, I will forward those communications directly to the State Attorney General's office as evidence of harassment. Govern yourselves accordingly. Zoe Clark. I hit send. The silence that followed was heavy. It was 3 a.m. Go to sleep. Zoe, Kira said gently, they won't see it until morning, but they saw it, or at least, Denise saw it. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was not a text. It was a voice memo. I stared at the screen. Mom, do not listen to it, Kira said. I have to. I said. I hit play and set the phone on the table. The audio started with a ragged, wet sound. She was crying, not the soft crying of sadness, but the heaving, hyperventilating sobbing of a victim performing for an audience. Zoe, oh God. Zoe, how could you? Her voice cracked. I just saw your email. A lawyer? You are threatening your own mother with the Attorney General? After everything we have done for you? I carried you for 9 months. I sat up with you when you had the chickenpox. We gave you everything. We sacrificed our retirement so you could go to that college and get that fancy job. And this is how you repay us? By treating us like criminals? The sobbing stopped abruptly. The tone shifted. It became cold, sharp, and venomous. You think you are so smart with your spreadsheets. You do not know anything about the real world. You do not know what it takes to keep a family afloat. You are a selfish, cold-hearted little girl. If you do this, if you expose us to strangers, you are killing me. Do you hear me? You are putting a gun to my head. I hope you enjoy your money. Zoe, I hope it keeps you warm when you have nobody left. The message ended. The room was silent. Kira reached out and stopped the playback. Wow, she said softly. That was a greatest hits album of narcissism. I felt a strange sensation. It wasn't pain. It was clarity. She didn't deny it. I said, I looked at Kira. She didn't deny a single thing. She just talked about chickenpox in college. She is trying to change the venue. Kira said, you filed a motion in the court of facts. She is trying to move the case to the court of guilt. Do not let her. I picked up my phone and blocked the number. I am not paying for the chickenpox anymore. I said, I slept on Kira's couch for 3 hours. I woke up to a gray, rainy Thanksgiving morning. My phone had 18 missed calls, 4 from Ethan, 14 from the house line, and one text from my father, "Meet me at the Juniper Cup Diner. Exit 44. Please, just me. I will tell you the truth." I looked at the timestamp. 7 in the morning. I showed it to Kira. "Don't go," she said. "It is a trap. They will ambush you. It is Dad." I said, "He sounded broken on the phone yesterday." And he said, "Just me." "If Ronan or Ethan shows up, you leave." Kira said, "You leave immediately. I promise." The Juniper Cup Diner was a chrome and neon relic off the highway, halfway between Marrow Bay and Briar Glen. It was the kind of place that smelled of old fryer grease and lemon cleaner. On Thanksgiving morning, it was mostly empty, save for a few truckers and people who looked like they had nowhere else to be. I saw Graham Clark sitting in a booth in the back corner. He was wearing a windbreaker that looked 2 sizes too big for him. He was staring into a mug of black coffee. His shoulders hunched. He was alone. I walked over and slid into the booth opposite him. I did not take off my coat. "Hi, Dad?" He looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed and shadowed with dark circles. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 2 days. "Zoe," he said, "thank you for coming. I am not here to negotiate. Dad, I am here to hear the truth." He nodded slowly. He wrapped his hands around the mug as if to warm them. "It started 5 years ago," he began, his voice raspy. "The roof. You remember the roof? I paid for the roof." I said, "I took out a loan, $12,000. Graham winced. "We didn't use it for the roof," he whispered. I felt a spike of anger, but I pushed it down. "Go on. We used it to pay off a credit card." He said, "Mom." Denise. She had run up a card buying things for the house, furniture, curtains. She wanted the place to look nice for the holidays. She said we could fix the roof ourselves, patch it up. So I patched it. He continued, "But I did a bad job. The leak got worse. Mold started growing in the attic. We needed real money to fix it then. 30,000. But our credit was shot because of the cards. So you went to Ronan." I said. Graham nodded. "Denise met him at a mixer. He was charming. He said he helped families with liquidity issues. He lent us the 30,000. But the interest? Zoe? It was weekly interest. We couldn't keep up." Graham said, "We missed a payment. The balance jumped. Then we missed another. He said he would take the house. Denise was terrified. She couldn't bear the thought of the neighbors knowing we were broke. She couldn't bear the shame. So she offered him me." I said, Graham looked down at the table. "She told him you were successful, that you were a manager. She said if he just gave us time, we could get the money from you. But we couldn't just ask you for $50,000. You would have asked questions. So Ronan suggested the authorized user strategy." I said, "He told you to use my credit profile to open new lines." Graham nodded miserably. "He said it was temporary, just to improve our family profile so we could refinance the high-interest loan into a traditional mortgage. He said we were just borrowing your good name for a few months. But you didn't stop." I said, "You opened a furniture account 2 weeks ago." "That was Denise," he said. "She said we needed a new dining set for Thanksgiving. She said if the house looked poor, people would talk. I told her no. I told her we were drowning. But she signed your name. She said you would never know because she controlled the mail." I looked at my father. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream at him for being weak, for letting his wife cannibalize his daughter to buy a dining table. But mostly, I just felt a profound, exhausting pity. He was a hostage, too, but he was a hostage who had helped build the prison. "There is something else," Graham said. He looked even more frightened now. "What? Ethan?" he said. "What about Ethan?" "He doesn't work for a logistics company," Graham said. "I knew that. I figured he didn't have a real job." "No. Zoe. He has a job. He works for Ronan." I froze. "He is a recruiter," Graham said. "He finds other families like us, people who are house poor, people who have equity but no cash. He brings them to Ronan's seminars. They call them donation events for the charity." "The charity," I said. "Second table outreach." Graham nodded. "It is a front. They get people in the door with the promise of debt relief and financial counseling. Then Ronan gets them to sign over equity in their homes in exchange for these high-interest bridge loans. Ethan gets a commission for every family he brings in. My stomach turned. Ethan wasn't just a leech. He was a predator. He was hunting for Ronan. Does Ethan know it is a scam? I asked. Graham looked at me, his eyes full of tears. Ethan wants to be rich. Zoe, he wants to be like Ronan. He thinks Ronan is a genius. He calls the victims leads. I felt the bile rise in my throat. My brother was selling ruin to other families to pay for his car insurance and his ski trips. And the money from Narrowgate? I asked. The vendor payments? Graham covered his face with his hands. Ronan said he needed to clean some of the cash coming from the borrowers. He told Ethan to set up a vendor profile at your company. He said if you approved the invoices, it would look like legitimate business income. Ethan told us you were okay with it. He said you were in on the play. I slammed my hand down on the table. The silverware rattled. I was never in on it. I hissed. I didn't know anything. Graham flinched. I know that now. But Denise, she wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe we were all working together. It made her feel better about stealing from you. I sat back, breathing hard. The picture was complete. It wasn't just debt. It was racketeering. It was money laundering. And my name was stamped on all of it. You have to testify. Dad, I said. Graham looked up, terrified. What? You have to tell this to the police. You have to tell them that Ronan is running a predatory lending scheme and using the charity to launder money. And you have to tell them I had nothing to do with it. I can't, he whispered. Denise will what? I asked. Leave you? Yell at you? Dad, she has already destroyed us. If you don't speak up, I go to jail. Do you understand that? I am being investigated for embezzlement because of what Ethan did. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing. I can't go to prison. Zoe, I'm 65. Then tell the truth. I said, turn state's witness. Save yourself. Save me. He looked out the window at the gray parking lot. He looked like a man searching for a door that wasn't there. I have to go, he said, sliding out of the booth. She thinks I am at the pharmacy. Dad, wait. He stood up. He didn't look at me. I am proud of you. Zoe, he said, his voice breaking. You got out. You were the only one who got out. He turned and walked away, his steps shuffling and heavy. I watched him get into his old sedan and drive onto the highway, heading back to the house where the monster lived. I drove back to Marrow Bay in silence. The revelation about Ethan sat in my gut like lead. He wasn't just a failure. He was dangerous. When I got back to my apartment, I checked my work email on my phone, even though I knew I shouldn't. There was a message from Sarah. Subject: Update on vendor access, Zoe. Per the compliance review initiated yesterday, your access to the vendor payment portal and all financial approval systems has been revoked effective immediately. Do not attempt to log in. We have identified 3 additional invoices from Pike Logistics pending approval in the queue. The account activity suggests these were entered using your credentials. We are required to report this activity to the State Regulatory Board. Please be available for a formal interview on Monday. I stared at the screen. Using your credentials. Ethan must have keylogged me. Or maybe I had just been careless with my laptop password during a visit, trusting the people who shared my DNA. I felt cornered. My job was hanging by a thread. My credit was frozen but scarred. My family was a criminal enterprise. I needed to fight back, harder. I spent the next 4 hours filing formal disputes. I didn't just click buttons this time. I wrote detailed affidavits. To Equifax. The account titled Luxury Home Furnishings was opened fraudulently by a third party residing at 14 Maple Drive. I did not authorize this account. The email address used was a fabrication. To the Federal Trade Commission, I am reporting an instance of identity theft involving the misuse of my Social Security number to secure private equity loans without my consent. To the Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3, I am reporting a fraudulent charity. Second Table Outreach, for soliciting donations that were misappropriated for private debt repayment. Every time I hit submit, I felt a little lighter. I was creating the paper trail that Ronan had mocked. My phone rang. It was Ethan. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Denise? Voicemail. It rang again. An unknown number. I answered. This is Zoe. Zoe. It is Ronan. His voice was calm, almost bored. I received your email, he said, very dramatic. Govern yourselves accordingly. Did you get that from a movie? I want my records, Ronan. I said. He chuckled. We can do better than records. I have a solution. A way to put this all behind us before the turkey is carved. I heard the sound of an email arriving on my laptop. I just sent you a proposal. He said, a debt consolidation and assumption. Agreement. It is very standard. It rolls all the outstanding family obligations, the roof, the loans, the credit cards, into one single note, a fixed interest rate, 5%, very generous. I opened the email. There was a PDF attached. I just need you to sign it, Ronan said. It acknowledges the debt is valid, and it sets up a payment plan. Once you sign, I give you the original documents. I close the accounts. I tell Narrowgate that the vendor invoices were a clerical error on my end, a mix-up with account numbers. I clear your name. Zoe. I scrolled through the document. It looked professional. Pike Bridge Solutions. Debt consolidation agreement. Then I saw the clause on page 4. The undersigned, Zoe Clark, hereby personally guarantees the full repayment of the consolidated debt, $50,400, and waives any right to dispute the validity of the originating obligations. The undersigned agrees that this debt is not dischargeable in bankruptcy. It was a trap, a beautiful, legal trap. If I signed this, I was admitting the debt was mine. I was accepting liability for everything they had stolen. I was handing him a confession that would protect him from fraud charges forever. He would own me, but he offered to clear me with Narrowgate. That was the bait. I need to read it. I said, take your time, he said. But remember, the holiday is almost over, and the compliance office opens on Monday. He hung up. I stared at the contract. It was tempting. God, it was tempting. To just sign it, pay the $50,000 over 5 years, and make the nightmare stop. To save my job. To save my parents from prison. But then I thought of Ethan calling his victims leads. I thought of Denise's voice memo. I hope it keeps you warm. I called Alyssa Venn. It was Thanksgiving Day, but I called her cell. She answered on the second ring. Please tell me you didn't go back to the house. She said, I didn't. I said, I met my dad, and Ronan sent me a contract. I explained the terms. I explained the solution he offered for Narrowgate. He is trying to get you to ratify the fraud. Alyssa said instantly, if you sign that, you are an accessory after the fact. You go down with the ship. I know. I said, but I need him to admit the Narrowgate invoices were fake. I need that on record. Then we need to get him to say it in front of a witness. Alyssa said, not on the phone, in person. I'm going to meet him. I said, Zoe, that is dangerous. I will meet him in a public place, a crowded place, and I want you there, but not as my lawyer. Not at first. What do you mean? I mean, I want you to sit at the next table. I want you to witness the conversation. I want you to hear him attempt to extort me. Alyssa was silent for a moment. That is risky. Zoe, if he spots me, he won't. I said, he is too arrogant. He thinks I am a scared little girl who just wants her mommy back. He thinks he has already won. I took a deep breath. I am going to schedule it. Tomorrow morning, Black Friday. Where? Alyssa asked. Marrow Bay Commons? I said, the coffee shop in the center of the plaza. It will be packed with shoppers. He can't make a scene. Okay, Alyssa said. I will be there. 10 a.m. 10 a.m. I hung up. I looked at the contract again. I hit print. I wasn't going to sign it, but I was going to bring it. It was the bait for my own trap. I spent the rest of Thanksgiving alone in my apartment. I made a sandwich. I drank a glass of wine. I watched the parade on mute. At 6 o'clock, the sun went down. My phone buzzed again. It was a picture from Denise. It was the dining room table, the new table. It was set for 3. The 4th chair, my chair, was empty. Caption: Some people choose money over family. We choose love. Praying for you, Zoe. I looked at the empty chair. It didn't look lonely. It looked safe. I turned off my phone. I closed my eyes, and I prepared for war. Marrow Bay Commons was a cacophony of Black Friday commerce. The air smelled of roasted coffee beans and desperation as shoppers elbowed past each other, clutching bags filled with discounted electronics and cashmere sweaters. It was the perfect cover. In the middle of the atrium, under the artificial glow of a massive Christmas tree, sat the espresso bar where I had agreed to meet Ronan. I arrived 15 minutes early. I chose a small, round table near the perimeter, one that offered a clear view of the entrance but kept my back to a pillar. Alyssa Venn was already there, seated 2 tables away. She wore a wool coat and a beanie pulled low, nursing a latte and reading a newspaper like a spy in a noir film. She gave me the barest nod as I sat down. I placed the printed contract Ronan had sent me on the table. Beside it, I placed my phone, screen down, recording app running. At exactly 10 o'clock, he appeared. Ronan Pike moved through the crowd with the fluidity of a man who owned the space he occupied. He wore a camel hair coat and a scarf that looked like it cost more than my first car. He wasn't looking around anxiously. He was smiling at people, nodding as if he were the mayor of the mall. He spotted me and his smile widened. It was a performance. "Zoe," he said, reaching the table. He extended a hand. I didn't take it. "Sit down." "Ronan." He chuckled, unbothered, and pulled out the chair opposite me. He unbuttoned his coat and leaned back, looking at the contract on the table. "I see you brought the paperwork. Good. That shows initiative. Your mother always said you were the efficient one." I looked at him, up close. The charm was thinner. I could see the lines around his eyes, the slight yellowing of his teeth. He wasn't a financial genius. He was a grifter in a nice coat. "I have some questions before I sign anything." I said, "Of course," he said smoothly. "Due diligence. I respect that. Ask away." "I want to understand the structure of this consolidation," I said. "You claim my parents owe you $50,000, but the original loan for the roof was $30,000. Where did the rest come from?" Ronan waved a hand dismissively. "Interest, fees, restructuring costs. You know how it is, Zoe. Capital is expensive. I stepped in when the banks turned your parents away. I provided liquidity when they were drowning. I am not a charity. Despite what the pamphlets say, I am a businessman helping families stay afloat." "Helping families," I repeated, "by charging weekly interest? By taking my Social Security card as collateral?" "Collateral is a standard practice," he said. "It builds trust. And frankly, Zoe, you are the only asset your family has. You are the successful one, the one who made it out. It is only natural that you would want to carry the love with money. That is what families do, isn't it? The strong support the weak." He said it with such conviction that I almost believed him. He had weaponized the very thing I'd been telling myself for years. I am the strong one. I have to help. That is an interesting theory. I said, "But my lawyer has a different one." Ronan's eyes flicked to the side. "Lawyer? You brought a lawyer?" I gestured to the table behind him. Alyssa stood up. She took off the beanie, revealing her sharp bob and her sharper eyes. She walked over and placed her business card on the table in front of him. "Alyssa Venn, consumer rights attorney," she said. Ronan didn't panic. He didn't even flinch. He just looked at the card, then back at me with a look of disappointed amusement. Zoe, I thought we were keeping this in the family, bringing in legal counsel. That complicates things. It makes the clerical error at Narrowgate much harder for me to fix. We are way past clerical errors." "Mr. Pike," Alyssa said, sitting in the 3rd chair, "I have reviewed the proposed contract. It is an admission of usury and fraud. Now, before my client considers signing anything, I require full documentation." She opened her briefcase. "I want the original loan agreement signed by Graham and Denise Clark. I want the Truth in Lending Act disclosure statements. I want the amortization schedule. And I want the audited financial reports for second table outreach showing the dispersal of funds. Ronan's smile twitched. Just a fraction. A tiny spasm at the corner of his mouth. The paperwork is complicated, he said. It was a private arrangement between friends. We didn't bog ourselves down in bureaucracy, so there is no paperwork, Alyssa said, which confirms everything. You are operating an unlicensed lending business and using a 501c3 to launder the repayments. Ronan leaned forward, his voice dropping. The genial uncle act vanished. Listen to me, Ms. Venn. You can wave your statutes around all you want, but the reality is that the Clark family took my money. They spent it, and they promised to pay it back. If Zoe here wants to hide behind a lawyer, that is her choice. But I have documents of my own. I have emails from Zoe's personal account authorizing transfers. I have vendor invoices approved by her credentials. If I go down, she goes down. I looked him in the eye. You don't have emails from me. Ronan, you have emails from Zoe Clark Briar Glen. He paused. I know about the fake account. I said, I know about the IP addresses. And guess what? I have already frozen my credit. I have already filed disputes with the FTC and the credit bureaus. I have already submitted an affidavit of identity theft regarding the luxury home furnishings account. His smile twitched again. This time, the crack was visible. He looked annoyed, like a chess player who realized his opponent had moved a piece while he wasn't looking. You disputed the accounts? He asked quietly. Every single one, I said, and I have documented the transfers into Pike Bridge Solutions. The peer-to-peer payments, the medical bills that went to your admin account. It is all mapped. Ronan, every cent. He stared at me. The mall noise seemed to fade away. You are making a mistake, he said. A very expensive mistake. Suddenly, a voice cut through the air like a siren. Zoe. I froze. I knew that voice. I turned to see my mother, Denise Clark, marching through the food court. She was wearing her good coat and a scarf that matched Ronan's. She wasn't looking at the shoppers. She was looking directly at me, her face a mask of righteous fury. She arrived at the table and slammed her purse down next to the contract. I cannot believe you, she shouted. Everyone in the coffee shop turned to look. You are doing this here? In public? You are humiliating us in front of the whole town? Mom, I said, keeping my voice low. Go home. I will not go home, she screamed. She pointed a manicured finger at me. You ungrateful child. We raised you. We fed you. And now, when we need a little help, just a little support to get through a hard time, you hire a lawyer? You freeze the accounts? You are punishing us. Zoe, you are punishing your own parents 2 days after Thanksgiving. She turned to the onlookers, playing to the gallery. She canceled our phones. She cut off our insurance. She wants her own brother to walk to work in the snow. Ronan sat back, watching the scene with a satisfied smirk. This was his backup plan. If intimidation didn't work, he would use the nuclear option. Denise, Alyssa tried to intervene. Mrs. Clark, please lower your voice. This is a legal meeting. Oh, shut up! Denise snapped at her. You are the one poisoning her mind, telling her to abandon her family. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Sign the paper. Zoe, just sign it and fix this. Ronan is trying to help us. Why do you have to be so difficult? Why do you always have to be the victim? I looked at her hand on my arm. I looked at her face, twisted with fear and entitlement. She wasn't protecting me. She was offering me up to save her own comfort. I pulled my arm away. I stood up. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt a cold, hard stone in my chest where my heart used to be. You banned me. Mom, I said. The words were quiet, but they cut through her shouting like a knife. What? She stammered. You sent me a text. I said, you're banned. Idiot. Denise flushed. That was just, I was angry. You know I didn't mean it. I looked at her. You banned me first. I said, I am just honoring it. I picked up the contract. I ripped it in half. Then I ripped it again. I dropped the pieces on the table in front of Ronan. "We are done here." I turned to leave. Denise gasped, looking at the torn paper like I had murdered someone. "Zoe, you can't walk away. Watch me," I said. I started walking. Alyssa gathered her briefcase and followed me. As we reached the exit of the food court, a hand grabbed my shoulder. It was Ethan. He was sweating. His eyes were wide and frantic. He had been hiding nearby, waiting for the signal. "Zoe, stop. You have to listen." I shook him off. "I am done listening to you. Ethan, get a job. A real one." "No, you don't understand," he hissed, running alongside me. "He is not just going to sue us. He is going to expose us." I kept walking. "Let him." Ethan grabbed my arm again. Harder this time. "He is going to post it." "Zoe, he has a whole file prepared. He showed me. He is going to post on Facebook, on LinkedIn, everywhere. He is going to say we stole from the charity. He is going to say we defrauded investors. He is going to tag Narrowgate. He is going to ruin our names." I stopped. "He is going to say you stole from the charity." I said, "Because you did." Ethan's face crumbled. "But he will drag you into it. He will say you were the mastermind." "Zoe, please, just pay him something. Give him 5,000, just to buy us time. If you don't, Mom will fall apart. She can't handle the shame. Zoe, if the neighbors find out, if the church finds out, she will die." I looked at my brother. He wasn't afraid of prison. He wasn't afraid of poverty. He was afraid of the neighbors. Ronan's real weapon wasn't the law. It wasn't even the debt. It was shame. He knew that Denise Clark would burn her own children alive rather than look poor in front of the Marrow Bay Garden Club. He was holding their reputation hostage, and they were willing to pay any price to ransom it. And they wanted me to pay the ransom. I looked back at the table. Ronan was calmly drinking his coffee. Denise was sitting in my chair, weeping into a napkin while strangers stared. I felt the old tug, the familiar, sickening pull. Just pay him. 5,000. Make it stop. Rescue. Relief. Repeat. It would be so easy. I could write a check. The screaming would stop. Denise would hug me. Ethan would high-five me. We would have Christmas. But then I looked at Alyssa. She was watching me, waiting. She wasn't judging. She was just witnessing. If I paid him, I was buying their silence. But I was selling my soul. I turned back to Ethan. "Let him post it," I said. Ethan stared at me. "What?" "Let him post it," I repeated. "Let him tell the world. Because the truth is the only thing that breaks the cycle." "Ethan, but the shame," he whispered. "The shame is yours." I said, "Not mine. I am not carrying it anymore." I walked out of the mall into the cold November air. Alyssa fell into step beside me. "You did good," she said quietly. "I don't feel good," I said. "I feel like I just watched my house burn down." "That is because you lit the match," she said. "But sometimes, Zoe, fire is the only way to clean the land." We went back to Alyssa's office. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. "What now?" I asked. Sitting in the leather chair, "Now we escalate." Alyssa said, "We don't wait for him to post. We strike first." She pulled out a fresh legal pad. "We are going to file a formal complaint with the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. We are going to attach the evidence of the fake charity, the usurious loans, and the identity theft. We are going to name Ronan Pike, Pike Bridge Solutions, and Second Table Outreach. And my parents?" I asked. Alyssa sighed. "Zoe, if we report the charity fraud, the investigation will include all board members. That means Denise. If we report the identity theft regarding the loans, the investigation will include the beneficiaries. That means Graham and Ethan." She looked at me steadily. "Reporting Ronan means implicating your family. There is no way to surgically remove them from the tumor. They are the tumor." I stared at the wall. "If I do this, they could go to jail." "It is possible," Alyssa said. "Probation is more likely for first-time offenders, especially if they cooperate against Ronan. But yes, charges are possible." I thought about my father. I am sorry, he had whispered. I thought about Denise. You are dead to us. I thought about the empty chair at the table. They made their choice, I said. They chose to steal. They chose to lie. They chose Ronan over me. I picked up the pen. Draft the complaint. Alyssa, I will sign it. That night, I sat in my apartment in the dark. It was late, past midnight. The city was asleep. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Dad. I let it ring 3 times. Then I picked it up. Hello? Zoe? His voice was slurred. He had been drinking. Hi, Dad. She is breaking plates, he said. What? Your mother? She came home from the mall and she started breaking things. The good china, the wedding plates. She is smashing them against the wall. She says you ruined her life. I closed my eyes. I could imagine it. The shattering porcelain. The screaming. I didn't ruin her life. Dad. She did. I know. He said. He started to cry. A jagged, ugly sound. I know. Zoe. But I am scared. Scared of Ronan? No, he whispered. Scared of her. Scared of what she will do when the world finds out. She lives for the image. Zoe. Without it, she is nothing. If the police come, if the neighbors see a squad car in the driveway, she will destroy everything. She will destroy me. I realized then, with a jolt of horror, that my father wasn't just a victim of Ronan. He was a battered spouse. He had been emotionally managed by Denise's rage for 40 years. He had learned to fear her disappointment more than the law. He had learned that keeping Denise calm was the only directive that mattered, and I had learned it too. Don't upset Mom. Just cover the bill. We can't look cheap. Dad, I said gently, you can leave. You can walk out the door. You can come here. He laughed, a bitter wheezing sound. Leave? Where would I go? I am an old man. Zoe, I have no money, no spine. I gave it all to her. Dad, please, just tell me one thing, he said. Are you really going to report us? I held the phone tight. I am reporting Ronan. Dad, and I have to tell the truth about everything else. I have to clear my name. There was a long silence. I understand, he said finally. You are a good girl. Zoe, you always were. Too good for us. Dad, goodbye, honey. The line clicked dead. I tried to call him back, straight to voicemail. I sat there, staring at the phone. I felt a grief so profound it felt like physical pain. I had cut the cord, but the phantom limb was still throbbing. Thanksgiving morning arrived, or rather, the day after Thanksgiving. The calendar was blurred in my mind. I was alone in my apartment. The sun was shining, a cruel, bright light that illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air. I should have been at the table in Briar Glen. I should have been eating dry turkey and listening to my aunt gossip. I should have been pretending to be happy. Instead, I was free. And freedom felt incredibly lonely. I went to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. I had nothing. A carton of milk. A jar of pickles. I refused to let them steal the holiday completely. I put on my coat and walked to the corner store. I bought a rotisserie chicken, a bag of instant mashed potatoes, and a single slice of pumpkin pie in a plastic clamshell. I came home. I heated the food. I set a place at my kitchen island. I poured a glass of wine. I sat down. Happy Thanksgiving, Zoe, I said to the empty room. I took a bite of the chicken. It was dry. It was delicious. It was bought with my own money. It was eaten in my own peace. I ate the whole meal. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't check my email. I just existed. At 2:00, the peace was broken. My laptop chimed. A high-priority notification. I walked over to the desk. From Narrowgate Compliance Team. Subject: Formal investigation. Disclosure required. Ms. Clark, the internal audit has been escalated to a formal investigation regarding the vendor Pike Logistics. We have received information suggesting a conflict of interest involving familial relationships and unauthorized financial benefits. You are required to submit a full written disclosure statement regarding your relationship with Ronan Pike, Graham Clark, Denise Clark, and Ethan Clark by Sunday at 5 p.m. Failure to provide a complete and truthful disclosure will result in immediate termination and referral to law enforcement. I stared at the screen. 48 hours. I had to put it all on paper. I had to write the narrative of my family's betrayal and hand it to my employer. I had to choose, protect the lie, or protect the truth. I looked at the empty plate on the counter, the remnants of my solitary meal. I sat down at the keyboard. I opened a blank document. Title: Disclosure Statement of Zoe Clark. Date: November 29th, 2025. To whom it may concern. I took a deep breath. I, Zoe Clark, am the victim of a complex financial fraud perpetrated by the individuals listed below. I started typing. I didn't stop. The cursor blinked on the white screen, a rhythmic pulse that matched the beating of my heart. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by the debris of my forensic audit, stacks of bank statements, printed emails, and the torn halves of Ronan Pike's predatory contract. I had 48 hours to save my career. To do that, I had to destroy my family. I typed the header of the document: Disclosure of Financial Irregularities and Conflict of Interest. Prepared by Zoe Clark. Date: November 29th, 2025. I began to write. I did not write as a daughter. I wrote as an operations manager. I stripped the emotion from the narrative, leaving only the cold, hard bones of the facts. I, Zoe Clark, formally disclose that my personal identity information was utilized without my consent to establish vendor credentials for an entity known as Pike Logistics. I further disclose that I am a victim of familial identity theft, wherein my credit profile was used to secure private equity loans from Ronan Pike, the principal owner of Pike Logistics, under the guise of charitable operations. I attach the exhibits. Exhibit A, the affidavit of fraud filed with the Federal Trade Commission. Exhibit B, the screenshot of the Zoe Clark Briar Glen fake email account logs. Exhibit C, the time-stamped text message from Denise Clark demanding payment for a fraudulent catering invoice. Exhibit D, the recording of the conversation at Marrow Bay Commons, where Ronan Pike admitted that the paperwork was complicated and non-existent. It took me 4 hours. By the time I finished, I felt hollowed out, as if I had surgically removed a vital organ, but I also felt lighter. I was no longer carrying their secrets. I was placing them on the table, under the harsh light of compliance regulations. I was hovering over the Save as PDF button when my phone buzzed. It was Denise. I stared at the preview. I knew I should not look. I knew it was poison, but the conditioning of 33 years is not broken in a weekend. I picked it up. Zoe, please, we are about to sit down for dinner. Everyone is asking where you are. Just come over. Come apologize before dinner and we can fix this. We can talk to Ronan together. Don't let pride ruin this family. I read it twice. Come apologize. She did not say we are sorry. She did not say we miss you. She said come apologize. She was offering me a plea deal. If I came back, if I knelt, if I admitted that I was the one who had broken the peace, then the system could reset. I could take the debt back. I could sign Ronan's contract. I could save their reputation. It was a trap. It was the same trap I had walked into 1,000 times before. The bait was love, but the mechanism was control. Apology equals consent, and consent equals another decade of bills. I deleted the text. I did not reply. I turned back to my laptop. I converted the disclosure to a PDF. I attached it to an email addressed to Sarah in compliance and the General Counsel of Narrowgate Marine. I hit send. The swoosh of the outgoing email sounded like a gavel falling, but I was not done. I opened a new browser tab. I navigated to the website of the Connecticut Public Integrity Bureau. This was the state oversight body responsible for consumer protection and charity regulation. I clicked on File a Complaint. Name of entity. Second table outreach. Nature of complaint. Misappropriation of charitable funds. Operation of an unlicensed lending scheme. Fraudulent solicitation. I typed out the narrative. I named Ronan Pike. I named Pike Bridge Solutions. And with a trembling hand, I listed the board members who were complicit in the scheme. Director, Denise Clark. I paused. I looked at the name. My mother. The woman who had taught me to read. The woman who had bandaged my knees. The woman who had called me an idiot and banned me from her table. If I clicked submit, I was inviting the state to investigate her. I was potentially sending police to the house on Maple Drive. I thought about the empty shelf in my closet where my Social Security card used to be. I thought about the fake job Ethan had pretended to have. I thought about my father's terrified whisper. They had not protected me. They had feasted on me. I clicked submit. A confirmation number appeared on the screen. Complaint ID 77942. It was done. The missile was in the air. I poured myself another glass of water and sat back, waiting for the fallout. It came quickly. 2 hours later, a notification popped up on my work email, which was still accessible on my phone despite the suspension. F.Dowd. Urgent. Employee misconduct report. It was from Sarah. She had forwarded me an email she had just received. From Anonymous. Concerned Citizen mbmail.com. 2. Compliance. Narrowgate. Marine. Com. Subject. Fraudulent Activity by Zoe Clark. To whom it may concern, I am writing to report that your employee, Zoe Clark, has been actively soliciting kickbacks from vendors. She orchestrated a scheme with her family to funnel money through a charity, Second Table Outreach, and is now trying to frame innocent parties to cover her tracks. She demanded a $50,000 payout to keep quiet. You should check her bank accounts for large cash deposits. I read it and let out a cold, sharp laugh. Ronan. He was fast. He must have realized I wasn't going to sign the contract, so he decided to burn me down before I could light the match. But he was sloppy. He was reacting out of anger, not strategy. I hit reply all to Sarah and the General Counsel. Sarah, please see the attached affidavit I filed with the FTC yesterday regarding identity theft, as well as the audio recording of Ronan Pike attempting to extort me at Marrow Bay Commons this morning. This email you received is a retaliatory measure from Mr. Pike because I refused to sign a document assuming liability for his fraudulent loans. Note that the sender is anonymous, whereas my disclosure is signed, notarized, and supported by forensic evidence. Zoe, I sent it. I was turning his threat into evidence. Every move he made now just tightened the noose I had placed around his neck. The sun began to set. The apartment grew dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I liked the shadows. They felt honest. At 7 o'clock, there was a knock at my door. It was a hesitant, soft knock. Not the police, not a delivery driver. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Ethan. He was standing in the hallway, dripping wet. It had started to rain. A freezing November sleet. He wasn't wearing a coat. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. I opened the door, but I stood in the frame, blocking the entrance. What do you want? Ethan? He looked up at me. His hair was plastered to his forehead. He was shaking, his teeth audibly chattering. Can I come in? He asked. Please. It is freezing. I hesitated. The operations manager said no. The sister said he is hypothermic. I stepped back. You can come in to dry off. Then you leave. He walked in, dripping onto my hardwood floor. He didn't look at the apartment with his usual envy. He just stood there, hugging himself. I threw him a towel. He caught it and buried his face in it. Ronan called Mom, he said, his voice muffled by the terry cloth. He told her you declared war. He told her you reported the charity. I leaned against the kitchen counter, crossing my arms. I reported the fraud. Ethan. Ethan lowered the towel. His eyes were red and swollen. Mom is... She is catatonic. Zoe. She is just sitting in the dark in the dining room. She won't speak. She won't move. Dad is crying in the garage. And you? I asked. What are you doing? I ran away. He whispered. I couldn't handle it. The house felt like a coffin. He looked at me, a desperate pleading in his face. Why did you do it? Zoe, why couldn't you just pay him? We could have fixed it later. I looked at my brother. I saw the 29-year-old man who still waited for someone else to tie his shoes. Because later never comes. Ethan, because you stole my name. You stole my credit. You stole my reputation." He flinched. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. I wanted to be the one who fixed things. For once, Mom, she always talks about you. Zoe is the smart one. Zoe is the successful one. I wanted to be the one who brought home the money. Ronan made it sound so easy. He said I could be a partner. I wanted to win. Zoe, I wanted to be the son who wins. I felt a pang of pity. Denise had pitted us against each other our whole lives. She had made affection a scarce resource, awarded only to the highest bidder. I had bid with competence. Ethan had bid with scams. I believe you. I said softly, I believe you wanted to help, but you didn't help. You dug a hole and threw us all in it. He slumped onto my sofa, burying his head in his hands. What am I going to do? He sobbed. I have no job. I have no money. Ronan is going to kill me. Ronan is going to be busy dealing with the Attorney General. I said, he won't have time for you. I walked over and sat on the coffee table in front of him. Listen to me, Ethan. He looked up. I am not going to give you money. Not a cent. Not now. Not ever. I am not going to pay your rent. I am not going to co-sign a loan. I am not going to fix this for you. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. But, I continued, if you want to get out, really get out, I will help you. I will help you write a resume that doesn't lie. I will send you links to legitimate job recruiters. I will help you set up a budget app. He stared at me. That is it? A resume? That is everything. Ethan, that is the only help that is real. The rest is just enabling. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. He looked at the towel, then at me. You are really done, aren't you? I am done paying. I said, I am done being the collateral. He stood up. He looked shaky, but steady enough to walk. Okay, he said. Okay, send me the links. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the knob. I am sorry, Zoe, for the identity theft. For calling you stingy. I nodded. Thank you. He walked out. I locked the deadbolt behind him. It clicked with a sound of finality. I went back to the kitchen and cleaned up the leftovers of my solitary Thanksgiving dinner. I put the plate in the dishwasher. My phone rang again. Graham. I sat on a stool and answered. Dad. Zoe. His voice was a whisper. He must be hiding in the garage again. Did Ethan come to see you? Yes. He just left. Graham let out a long, shaky breath. Good. Good. I was worried he would do something stupid. Silence stretched between us. Where did you eat? He asked. Here, I said. I made a chicken. Oh, that sounds nice. It was quiet. I said. Graham hesitated. I could hear the wind whistling through the cracks in the garage door on his end. I am proud of you. Zoe, he said. The words hung in the air. You stood up to him. You stood up to her. I never could. I was always too afraid. You can still stand up. Dad? No. He said, it is too late for me. I am part of the house now. If it falls, I fall. He paused, and his voice dropped to a brittle, terrifying whisper. But you need to know. Your mom. She saw the email about the report, the one you sent to compliance. Ronan forwarded it to her. She knows I reported her. I said, yes. And Zoe, she will never forgive this. Never, in her mind. You didn't report a crime. You committed treason. I know. I said, I accepted that when I hit send. Be careful, honey. Just be careful. He hung up. I put the phone down. I knew he was right. Denise Clark did not have the capacity for self-reflection. She only had the capacity for vengeance. I opened social media. I needed to see. There it was. Posted 10 minutes ago. A photo of the Thanksgiving table. The candles were lit. The turkey was carved. And at the head of the table, an empty chair. But she had cropped the photo. She had zoomed in so the empty chair was the focal point. The caption read, Some people choose money over family. Some people choose to attack their own parents to save their corporate jobs. We choose love. We choose forgiveness. Even when our hearts are broken by betrayal. Pray for our family. It was a masterpiece of spin. She was preempting the narrative. She knew the investigation was coming, so she was planting the seeds of her defense. Zoe is the aggressor. Zoe is the corporate shark. We are the victims. The comments were already flooding in. Stay strong. Denise, how could a daughter do that? Money is the root of all evil. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I could post the recording. I could post the affidavit. I could burn her down right there in the comments section. I watched the cursor blink. Let the story exist. I told myself, if I fought her on Facebook, I was playing her game. I was wrestling in the mud. I closed the app. I didn't like the post. I didn't comment. I let it sit there, a monument to her delusion. The truth wasn't on Facebook. The truth was in the file number 77942 at the Connecticut Public Integrity Bureau. I went to the window and looked out at the city lights. It was late now. The holiday was over. My phone chimed with a text from Melissa. Update. I spoke to a contact at the AG's office. They are interested. Given the number of victims associated with second table outreach, they are looking at a RICO predicate. Ronan has significant legal exposure. He will likely try to settle quickly to seal the records. I typed back, will they charge my parents? Alyssa's reply came 3 dots at a time. If the investigation expands, Denise and Ethan will be questioned about financial misrepresentation. If they flip on Ronan, they might get immunity. If they protect him, it could go the other way. I stared at the screen. It was out of my hands. I had started the avalanche, but I couldn't control which trees it took down. I was about to turn off my phone and go to bed when it buzzed. 2 messages arrived at the exact same second. The first was from Sarah at Narrowgate Compliance. Zoe, we have reviewed your disclosure and the corroborating evidence. The General Counsel is recommending a conditional reinstatement pending the final forensic audit. We believe you. Please report to the office on Monday at 9:00 a.m. I felt a rush of air enter my lungs. I had saved it. I had saved the life I built. I looked at the second message. It was from Denise. It wasn't a voice memo this time. It was text. Simple, brutal, final. If you do this, if you let them investigate us, you are dead to us. Do not call. Do not come back. You have no family. I looked at the 2 messages side by side. One offered me my future. The other demanded my past. I looked at the Thanksgiving leftovers on the counter. The plastic container with the slice of pumpkin pie I hadn't eaten. I had fed myself. I had chosen myself. I tapped on Denise's message. I typed a reply. I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourselves. I hope you find peace. I stared at the words. They were true. They were kind. But they were also unnecessary. She wouldn't hear them. She would only hear defiance. I deleted the text. I didn't send it. I didn't need the last word. The silence was the last word. I powered off my phone. The screen went black. Erasing Denise. Erasing Ronan. Erasing the empty chair. I opened my laptop. I had one more folder to organize for the investigators. I didn't know if Denise would be charged. I didn't know if Ethan would testify or if he would fold. I didn't know if my father would ever leave the garage. But as I sat there in the quiet of my own apartment, paid for with my own money, protected by my own boundaries, I knew one thing for certain. The cycle was broken. I was done paying for love that only existed when the bill was covered. I was an orphan by choice, and for the first time in my life, I was free. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed Zoe's journey of breaking free from toxic family dynamics, please let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories for more realistic, emotional dramas about justice and resilience. Please share your thoughts in English in the comments below. Would you have made the same choice as Zoe? See you in the next story.